Shutout and Shutdown. The season ends on a low note as Rodgers gets concussed. Now, as fans, we all rack our brains as we look for the next great head coach to lead our 101st season. We break it all down next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Hey Packers fans, this is your unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, and these are the podcasters you're looking for. One of these guys, even though he's a huge fan of the Packers, he doesn't like bratwursts and wonders if that's wrong. And the other guy bangs the drum all day and thinks, touchdown. And now it's time to go, Pack, go! With your hosts, Wayne Henderson and Troy Heinritz.
Happy New Year to you and yours from your Packers Fan Podcast, the show by and for fans of your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. It's episode 175, recorded January 2nd, 2019, and I'm at Wayne Henderson, already looking forward to the NFL Draft.
And I am at Troy Heinritz, and as a former soccer player that kicks balls into goals, I might see how my touchdown throwing abilities are. That was really sad and depressing. Anyways, we'll go over what we liked and didn't like from our season finale loss shutout, that is, to Detroit. First time that's happened in a long time that the Lions have swept the Packers. We'll run down the free agency list and give you our thumbs up and thumbs down on who we should keep and who we should let go. And we'll give you a sneak peek at our draft boards. Yes, I got 3 names that I'm targeting already for the Green Bay Packers.
And some other things that are coming up next for our Packers, like a new head coach. Going to talk a little bit about that. Potential trades. We'll have the results from this week's Twitter and Facebook poll asking you what you think is the team's first and foremost need to take care of ASAP. We've also got your G-Force feedback from 9203-PACK-GO from email and the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community.
Links or articles we reference in this episode can be found on our website. We hope you know where it is by now. It is PackersFanPodcast.com and then /175 for this 175th edition of your Packers Fan Podcast. Well, Kyler Fackrell sure had one hell of a season, Wayne. 10.5 sacks is pretty impressive for this young man and what he's been able to do for the Packers so far in 2018.
Absolutely. And Kyler Fackrell was one of the few highlights, in my opinion, from this game that ended our season in not so great fashion. But congratulations to Kyler. Job well done. Maybe next year, 15 to 20 sacks. What do you say?
I think that would be great, especially if we can figure out a way to plug the running game. And that if we plug the running game, that'll force us to have to pass more often, or the opposing team to pass more often. And that will obviously open up the door for Kyler. Sticking on the defensive side, I was pretty impressed with Antonio Morrison's play. I mean, plugging the holes in the running game, that first quarter pancake where he just kind of busted through the line and totally put that guy flat on his back. That was pretty amazing. And then LeGarrette Blount in the backfield in quarter 2, just shortly thereafter. I mean, Antonio Morrison was making his presence felt all over the field in this contest.
Yeah, he was one of the ones that really showed up and wanted to play. So that was great to see. It's hard to tell if somebody like Antonio will still be with the team next year, but it's way too early to tell.
Plus, then we had Josh Jones also getting in the backfield. So we talked about how we needed to pressure the quarterback more in this particular campaign in 2018. And it was nice to see some safety blitzes in the package because Josh Jones was getting back there quite frequently. And then Dean Lowry knocking passes down on the front side of the line. So all in all, I think the defense, granted the running game was a little bit of a letdown once again. And I still go back to Clay Matthews should be playing on the inside. And I even saw something from Mike Pettin this week that said, hey, maybe if Clay sticks around after the whole, free agency thing, maybe we would consider moving him to the inside because he doesn't have the explosive speed on the outside that he used to have. And I was like, really, Mike? Really? We told you that at the beginning of the season.
We tried so hard to tell him, make the change, make the move. How about
defense? Defense overall, I thought pretty good in this contest. Most of the season, I thought, besides the run defense, I thought the defense much improved over 2017. So that's a good sign. I'm looking up.
It would have been nice if we could have had some defensive scores, though, because our offense was not able to score any points, and we could have used the opportunity to take away points from the Lions and give them to our defense. But it was not to be, Troy, not to be.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the fault of Deshaun Kaiser in any way. I thought Deshaun played fairly well. He was moving the ball on the offense. I hate to say it, almost better than Rodgers was at some points. I mean, it is the Lions, so we have to take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, the things that Kaiser missed on were just like fingertips away. And I think that comes with practice, with getting timing down with your receivers, having a bond with your receivers, something that a backup quarterback doesn't do on a regular basis. So I think if for some reason Kaiser had to become the starter, he was definitely moving the ball much better than Hundley was. And he and Scantling looked like they had a pretty nice connection going on. And it'd be interesting to see what Kaiser does in the future.
Yes, and Deshaun's scrambling around was pretty good to see as well. And I think it goes back to these final 2 games. Deshaun Kaiser should have been the starter. I know Aaron Rodgers wanted to be the leader, wanted to go out there, and now look. Concussion. Dang it.
Yeah, but he'll shake that off and it'll be ready to go for next year. No problems.
Well,
but yeah, Kaiser not bad numbers, 16 to 35, 132 yards. He got 40 yards on the run, he had the one INT, almost the second INT. I think if there was anything that was bad on the day, it was that kind of jump ball that he threw up there for the pick. But that's something that he's just trying to make a play at that point because you're down. So what difference does it make if you're down 24-0 or 31-0?
That's true. That's true. He was trying to make something happen. Give him props for that. Deshaun Kaiser is not the main reason we lost the game.
No, the main reason we lost the game is very easily explained in the tight end position. I mean, literally, Rodgers had like no open receivers in the entire first quarter when he was in there. But the big things was Jimmy not knowing where the markers were on a first down play. You had Lance Kendricks drop one. You had Tanyan drop one. All of those are like drive killers. So every tight end. So if I'm anybody getting fired this week, it's the tight end coach because for some reason the tight ends just cannot hold on to the ball.
Yeah, just poor effort all over the place on different, no open receivers, dropped catches, and like you said, the tight end position, the run game without Aaron Jones, it just kind of stalled back to where it was last season.
And what was the issue there with the run game this week? I mean, Williams had like a breakout game last week, and then this week it seemed like he was non-existent. Is that a him thing, or is that an offensive line thing? I was trying to watch the coach's cam to see if just the holes weren't there, if the Lions defense was better, but that one kind of perplexed me when you go week to week and see like how much production value dropped off there for Williams.
Yeah, I was counting on a huge run game from whoever got the ball because we're at home, last game of the year, let's go out on a high note. It's a Lambeau Field, it's cold, but it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, and then looking at the other side of the ball and the defense, the secondary coverages on third down again, just scratch your head like who's covering the middle of the field, especially on that touchdown in the first quarter for the Lions. Like nobody in the middle of the end zone on a zone defensive scheme. Just perplexing to say the least.
Yeah, frustrating from start to end. And the special teams, oh my gosh, make them stop.
I mean, that guy comes up in the, what was it? It was in the Q3, I think it was, where he catches the ball. There's like 6 guys standing around him, and there's just enough room to sneak by on the sideline. One of those guys has to be on the sideline, just shutting that down and driving him back into the mass of humanity. I just don't understand what these coverage teams are doing, and then we muffed receiving the punt again. He kind of fumbled the ball and picked it back up and was able to get going. But yeah, it was just like special team, the short punts again from J.K. Scott to take 2 of those. Really field position in this game was really a deciding factor. There were a number of times I counted that we were starting inside of our own 20.
Yeah, and especially after the first half of the year when our punting was going so well, high, long punts. And I don't know if it's just because rookie-itis and the season is so long in the NFL compared to college that his leg just wore out. I don't know what the deal is. Yeah,
I don't know. What I do know is that Clay Matthews, that boneheaded penalty, where he's like, oh, that guy moved. It's like, dude, come on. Like, no whistle. You don't go across the line pointing to him like you're the ref. You do you, man. You do you. Don't worry about other people.
That could be the slogan for next season. You do you.
Gosh. Just, some real challenges in the final game. Not the way we wanted to close out the 100th season of the Packers there in Green Bay, Wisconsin. But you know what? It just means that the agony is now over. We move on to next year, and we're going to have a lot of fun because we know exactly who we're playing next year, both home and away. And so the home opponents, since I have the season tickets, I'll take the home side, and Wayne will cover the road side. But for home, we're going to have the Eagles coming to town, the Redskins once again. It seems like they're like a home team now, like the Seahawks. Denver Broncos, the Oakland Raiders, the Carolina Panthers again, and then, of course, the Bears, Lions, and the Vikings rounding out the schedule. So we are playing the East, the NFC East, and the AFC West this year. So it should be a lot of fun.
Now, of course, it's not set in stone yet where the Raiders will be playing next season. Apparently, they've played their last game at the Oakland Coliseum, but their stadium in Vegas is not ready yet. Who knows what kind of Raiders they're going to be next year?
Doesn't matter because they're playing at Lambeau, so they could be playing in my backyard for all I care. It don't matter because it's a home game for us.
Exactly. Yeah, in the end, that's really what matters. The title of the city, TBA. Now, road opponents. We're playing the Dallas Cowboys, and we have to play them in Dallas. Aaron Rodgers does do fairly well in Dallas. I still wish the game was at Lambeau. We're also...
I think he won a Super Bowl there at once.
We did, and we need to do so again. Somewhere, anywhere where the Super Bowl is. Also heading to New York to play the hapless Giants. Here's a scary one. We're heading to Kansas City next season to play the Chiefs, who could be the Super Bowl champs next season. Who knows?
That's like halfway between you and me. We should see if we can go to that one.
Oh, yeah. I've never been to Kansas City. That could be a fun one.
And then we hook up with Rob Walsh.
Yes, because he is a big Chiefs fan. We'll convert him. And then, of course, another team that could be the Super Bowl champs this year, the Los Angeles Chargers. Packers coming to LA again, / Carson.
And we can't wait for the SoCal Packer backers to put those tickets up for sale because Wayne will be grabbing those, and then I'll be grabbing a flight.
It's going to be an awesome game. Also heading up to San Francisco to play the 49ers, and, of course, going to Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota. And none of those three teams better think about hurting Aaron Rodgers yet again next season.
Could we get the Chargers and San Francisco games back-to-back? Just do a little West Coast swing, and then I'll just stay out there and work from the LA office, and then we'd drive on up the coast and hit the Niners game as well.
I'll make some calls. Hey, it very well could turn out, and that would be really good for the Packers as well to not have to travel back and forth. So, who knows? Maybe
it'd be really great for the SoCal Packer backers too.
Yes, it could. Maybe it could be a Sunday night Packers at Chargers, and then a Thursday night Packers at Niners.
Oh. Now you're dreaming.
Okay. I'll wake up.
The Packers draft situation for this coming year, we have 12th overall based on where we landed in the standings. So we will pick 2 spots ahead of where we picked last year. So that was, of course, before we traded down to 18th.
And then traded back up and
all that other fun stuff. Yeah. But yeah, we'll pick a number 12, and then we'll get whatever New Orleans settles in at in the first round as well. So could be as low as number 32, could be as high as whatever 32 minus 12 is.
20 something.
Yeah. So we'll see. But New Orleans Saints first. Who would have thought the Saints would be the home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs this year?
Not me. I did not see that one coming at all.
Yeah, but you know what usually happens? They get that bye week, they slow down, and then some number 6 seed comes in and just wipes them off the map. Go Eagles!
After the Eagles wipe the Bears out of the playoffs this weekend, hopefully.
That is the hope. That is the hope. Okay, then we have our second, third round picks, and then the fourth round, we actually have 2 picks in the fourth round. We got one from Washington there, and then we have round 5, and then round 6, we actually have 2 picks. Got Green Bay and one from Seattle. So again, that'll depend on where Seattle finishes in the playoff hunt.
That's a lot of picks. I wonder if Gutekunst is already kind of thinking of some trades and some combos and really moving up and down, because he really shocked us last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he does something even more bold this year.
I guess it all depends on who he wants on the draft board in particular. We have a couple suggested offseason needs. Those are going to be, of course, an edge rusher, because Clay Matthews didn't have the speed this year. Nick Perry was barely on the field when he wasn't injured. So looking for an edge rusher, I think, is our number one priority. And I really like this guy, Ja'Kai Polite, from the Florida Gators. He's a really good edge rusher. There's a really cool video piece on him. Seems like he kind of fits into the Green Bay philosophy of just doing good for good's sake and all that fun stuff, and just keeping your nose to the grindstone and playing hard. So we'll put that link in the show notes, PackersFanPodcast.com/175. And then you can watch that piece on Ja'Kai Polite if you have not been a Gators fan this past season. And then we also have a safety that we're keeping an eye on, Deontay Thompson from Alabama. Obviously, safety help needed because we got rid of Clinton-Dix. Now, I know that Josh Jones was playing better this year, but we'll have to see what that future looks like. Get a nice young secondary back there. And then, of course, adding a defensive end doesn't hurt at either. So we have Zach Allen from Boston College. I would keep an eye out on him as well. So one of those three, depending on how the first round shakes out, I think is where they would go, because you can usually pick up some good offensive line people in the second and third round, pick up your wide receivers in the fourth round, and you'll be in good shape. So I think that's where he'll land with his picks this year.
At least for our highest picks. We have so many needs, but I agree. Those three are probably what could really help us out the most in the long run.
And it's all going to depend, too, on the free agency situation, because we got to figure out who the heck we want to bring back and who we want to send packing.
It's that money thing, Troy. It's that most wonderful time of the year. I think we're going to lose some names we don't want to lose, but we do have quite a few players that do need to move on. We could put it that way.
So to explain it for the listening audience, an unrestricted free agent is players that have at least 4 accrued seasons of NFL experience and will be free to sign a contract with any NFL team at the start of the league year, which is 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, March 13th. And the 10 players that will become unrestricted free agents this year from the Packers include offensive line Byron Bell, cornerback Bashaud Breeland, wide receiver Randall Cobb, cornerback Devon House, tight end Lance Kendricks, tight end Mercedes Lewis, outside linebacker Clay Matthews, safety Eddie Pleasant, inside linebacker Jake Ryan, and defensive lineman Muhammad Wilkerson. So those are your 10. Out of those, Wayne, who do you think we should keep and who should take a walk?
Well, the most obvious choice is Bashaud Breeland. We've got to keep that guy. He's all of a sudden become magic. I think he is, no matter what, find a way to keep him. I wonder if Muhammad Wilkerson has enough that we should try to bring him back. He had so much promise and then got banged up. Those are the two that I really think we need to focus on. How about you?
Well, and Jake Ryan, because we absolutely need to plug the middle of the field. So I think Jake Ryan, coming off his injury, I would say you would try to secure Jake Ryan, or at least if you're going to let him walk, then you try to figure out how you can keep an eye on him and maybe counteroffer potentially, because I'd hate to see Jake Ryan leave the Packers coming off of a IR year.
True.
So then let's talk about the tight ends.
I think it's a clean slate. We may just let them all go.
Let them all go. Now, Mercedes Lewis obviously is one that didn't play much this year, so I think I would rather keep Lance Kendricks from what I saw. Granted, he did have the one drop in this game against Detroit, but I thought Lance played fairly decent throughout the course of the season, that he'd be able to stick around and be the backup. I don't think he's a starter, but he's definitely good enough backup, and we need a tight end.
Okay.
So I would say, depending on what you want to do about the Jimmy Graham pickup, as far as taking on the bonus and the option and all that other fun stuff, I think Lance Kendricks will probably stay, but Lewis would go, would be my guess there.
I'll go with that.
I guess Devon House depends on, we had Josh Jackson's up and coming. You got Bashaud Breeland, who came out of nowhere. You have Jari Alexander's doing a great job. Trevon Williams is still around. So do you need to re-sign Devon House? I don't know. I mean, he's still fairly young, so he could go ahead and make another good season run at it. But I mean, I think at this point he's number 4, behind the other 3 guys plus whoever you decide to draft. So maybe if he takes a reduced salary, maybe you keep him.
Maybe, because we need money so that we can try to get some big names that might be out there in free agency to come to the Packers.
Which then leaves the 2 big guys who have the most cap room that would get freed up if they were to leave the Packers, and that, of course, Randall Cobb and Clay Matthews. So I think you keep Clay Matthews only if he plays inside.
Okay.
And he'd have to take a reduced contract, of course.
I just hate to see either of them go, only because they've been with the team so long. There's such known names. They seem to be really good guys, could be future Packers Hall of Famers. But at this point, I think on the business side of things, they both might need to go. Can't afford him.
Clay has played his entire career as a Green Bay Packer. So that's something to keep in mind, too. I mean, granted, it's show business, not show friends. But at the same time, Clay is a leader on the team. So if they were able to work it out so that he could maybe take a reduced salary and move him to the inside, I think that would be a great fit for the Packers, to be quite honest, because we had a pretty good run defense a few years ago when Clay was playing on the inside. The big question, of course, is Randall Cobb. I mean, when he plays, he is a sure-handed slot receiver. I mean, that is one thing that Aaron Rodgers is always looked towards, whether it was Donald Driver in that role previously, now Randall Cobb. So if he's on the field and he's healthy, Cobb is a difference maker. The problem that you run into is that you have Kumaro coming into his own. You got Scantling, you've got Equiminius, whoever else you might pick up. Allison will be back. Still got Tay on the outside. So is Cobb somebody that you absolutely have to have? I think it depends on the draft. I think if you can find someone that's got good hands and is a slot receiver and has good chemistry with Aaron, then maybe you don't bring Randall Cobb back for next year. I mean, it'll be sad because we all remember, he's got Cobb. He's got Randall Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
When he basically put the Bears' dagger in their throats that year. It was amazing. What a catch and run. I mean, those are the stories that you'll miss, but at the same time, if you have to make some cap room, I think Cobb might be the one that's the short end of the stick.
And I think it's mostly because he, unfortunately, is injury prone. Probably because he is a slot receiver. I mean, I'd be injured every single week.
I'd be bent in half every single week. I wouldn't be able to stand up again.
I'm not going to try to go across the middle even 30 years ago. So it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think it might be time.
Well, there you have it. Those are the unrestricted free agents. Then we move into what's considered restricted free agency.
Oh, boy.
Now, these are the guys that basically the Packers have the ability to throw out what they call 3 different restrictions, right? The first one is a first-round restriction, a second-round restriction, and then a right of first refusal. So if they submit a tender to any of these people, the Packers would retain the right to match any offer sheet the player would sign with another NFL team. And if the tender is a first or second round option, the Packers then could decline to do the match on that offer sheet, but they would receive a 2019 draft pick in the specified round. So if I'm looking at the way things are going to line up here, I would assume they would put the right of first refusal tender on Geronimo Allison specifically. They would throw the first round tender on Kentrell Bryce at the safety position, and then Abraham Campbell would get probably the second round, and more than likely we would take that pick instead of retaining him.
Okay. So that if we are willing to pay whatever it takes, we will be able to keep Geronimo Allison.
Correct. If we put the tender on him.
Okay. I like it.
And then Kentrell Bryce obviously depends on what you want to do at the safety position. So I think that's why they would throw a tender on him just to see what the market says. And if someone thinks he's good, maybe we want to take it. Or if not, we'll get a pick in the 19 draft for it. Then you have the third category, which are exclusive rights free agents. This one is specifically around players that haven't accrued that 4th year of their time when their contract is up. So the players have fewer than 3 accrued seasons. The Packers may retain exclusive negotiating rights with them by submitting an ERFA offer tender, which is essentially a 1-year contract for the league minimum salary. So this says, hey, you don't have your 4 years accrued to be an unrestricted free agent. So we basically have the ability to give you a 1-year deal for the bare minimum. And those people would be defensive lineman Fidel Brown, running back Lavon Coleman, outside linebacker Reggie Gilbert, wide receiver Jake Kumaro, Justin McCray, Lucas Patrick on the O-line, as well as Adam Pankey. So I think for the most part, I think you would just keep all these guys. I haven't really heard much about Lavon Coleman or Fidel Brown to this point, but I would definitely try to keep Reggie Gilbert, definitely try to keep Kumaro, definitely keep the offensive line because we need the depth and need them to start to gel together. And then Robert Tonyan is out there as well. And for the most part, Tonyan played pretty decently, I think, through the season. So I think you'd give him one as well, just to keep around that third tight end option.
It's actually fairly complicated. All of the different levels, all of the different options. It's a good thing that we've got a whole team of management guys working on this, because there's got to be, it sounds like the union is involved, and so we have to do these exact things, like you said, this tender and this and that. We have to follow all these guidelines just right, because we don't want to screw anything up.
We definitely do not. But at the same time, these are the things that Goody is good at and what Goody gets paid to do, and he figures it all out and moves the chess pieces and throws a couple million this way, throws a couple million that way, and then he figures out what he has to do for April for the draft based on what he decides to do here. And then, of course, free agency opens up on March 13th, so you have that whole March 13th to April free agency window to see what you're going to do before you start picking up all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so that's really when the excitement starts, is March 13th.
Right, exactly. So, with that being said, I think we move into the big conversation for this week, which is, of course, the head coach discussion. Need some dramatic music. It's like election night coverage, right?
Yeah, we
projection in.
Yes, we need to check in with Connecticut. Yes. Yeah, this head coaching vacancy, in a lot of ways, is one of the prime jobs in the NFL, to get to be the head coach of the 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. Now, of course, we've already heard from a couple of coaches who said they don't want the job. I don't know if it's because they don't want the pressure or the complications of working with Aaron Rodgers and all of that. Whatever. Still, there's a lot of guys that want this job. Let's break it down, Troy.
Well, first and foremost, as a guy that doesn't want the job, or at least he said on national television, I'm not going anywhere. And that's, of course, the love affair that Mark Murphy has with Pat Fitzgerald down there at Northwestern. Now, most people have been hearing this conversation for the last couple of days. And if you really think about it, the reason why you fire Mike McCarthy 4 weeks left in the season when you did is so that you can open up the door to ask some college coaches if they want to come coach for the Green Bay Packers. And so I'm sure Mark made a call back to his old buddy Pat down there at Northwestern as soon as McCarthy walked out the door and said, hey, Pat, it's between your regular season and your bowl game. I want to have a conversation about coaching for the Green Bay Packers. Now, he says he's staying in Northwestern. I don't know how much money it would take to get him to move. I don't know if we necessarily need somebody like Pat Fitzgerald in Green Bay, but obviously there's some history there with Mark Murphy, and that, of course, has Packer fans up in arms because they think Mark Murphy should also move on at the end of this season as well.
True.
But neither here nor there, he is the guy that's in charge, so obviously he would call in some favors. Now, that also could lead the way to one Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, who just got crushed by Clemson in the bowl game this past week. Tampa Bay has already expressed interest in reaching out to Brian Kelly, so do you think that maybe the Packers would try to go somewhere with this potential?
Interesting. That's a name I had not heard bantied about just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely out there in the circles for people that have vacancies around the league, so I think it's just a matter of if Brian Kelly would be a fit. He might not maybe fit the scheme and the concept of the Green Bay Packers, but it is a name that people have been throwing out there given Notre Dame's success of late.
True.
Two guys that already have interviewed, or at least had conversations with the Green Bay Packers, is Chuck Pagano. Now, remember, Pagano was a fairly successful coach in Indianapolis with a few 11-5 seasons and an AFC Championship game. He's also very familiar with the Packers staff because he worked with Pettin when they were in Baltimore, and he also worked with Philbin when they were in Indianapolis. So, Chuck Pagano, think that would be an interesting play for the Packers?
I'm just trying to envision each of these guys one at a time being on the sidelines coaching this team. That's hard to envision. Chuck Pagano.
Chuck also had some health-related issues. I want to say it was 2012 or 2014. Can't remember exactly, but there was a period in there where I thought he had leukemia and then was able to bounce back from it. So just had to keep that in mind as well, looking long-term. Then you have Jim Caldwell. We all remember Jimmy from the good old Detroit Lions. And then, of course, also worked a little bit at Indianapolis as well. Had a winning record in Detroit, but couldn't win the big games. So do you think that they pass on Caldwell just because he isn't a closer?
And being a former NFC North guy, that just would seem kind of odd. He just doesn't seem like the right fit to me. And, of course, one of the big names that everybody's talking about that we first brought up here about 5 episodes ago when listener Hank called in and asked us, if Mike McCarthy does get fired, who would you like to see possibly as the Packers' next coach? And I was thinking maybe that Josh McDaniels guy from the hated New England Patriots. Now, of course, the Patriots are on a bye week this week, so the Packers are going to fly to New England and have a little chat with him this Friday and see where that lays. I think he could be a good fit.
I think he could be a good fit too. Again, it's just a matter of if Josh wants to take that step into Green Bay and, of course, the Aaron Rodgers equation and all of that fun stuff. So just depends on what his interest is and how things are looking. You know, maybe there's a succession plan in place with Belichick out there in New England too, and he'd be getting that job next.
That's maybe that's the rub.
Right. I mean, it could be, a 1 year, 2 year plan, whatever you think it might be. And Belichick can't coach forever, but at the same time, maybe there's a plan in place. Who knows? A good organization would do that.
We'll see.
They're also then that conversation is happening on Friday. The Packers then are going to leave the East Coast and head south because they're going to go talk to
Brett Favre.
Not Brett Favre. No. Little past Brett Favre's house. Going to fly right over and head to New Orleans, where they're going to talk with another team that's on bye this week and chat with Dan Campbell. Now, Dan Campbell also had some tight end coaching experience where the Packers definitely need some help. So what do you think of Dan Campbell as a potential?
Not familiar with him. I don't pay enough attention to the Saints. They always just seem boring, even though they could be going to the Super Bowl. But I definitely
with Taysom Hill on the field all day long.
With Taysom, that adds excitement to the Saints. It actually has me peaked. I'm definitely going to be watching their playoff games, and knowing that Dan Campbell could be in the mix, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on him as well.
Now, a name that Wayne, I'm sure, loves from our good old Lost days, but Matt LaFleur, the offensive coordinator for the Titans, is also being looked at, not necessarily because of his work this year in Tennessee, which was so-so, but because he is the person who did the combo work with Sean McVay of the Rams a season prior when Jared Goff threw for over 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns on 7 interceptions. Gurley put up 1,300 yards with 13 touchdowns on top of his 64 catches for 788 and 6 touchdowns. So Matt LaFleur, an offensive coordinator, seems to be like we're hanging in that park for most of these options.
Which makes me think that Pettin is probably sticking around no matter how many other coaches end up getting the boot.
Yes, because I haven't heard Pettin's name thrown around as wanting to put in for the head coaching position. Now, Joe Philbin was 500, obviously, as the interim head coach, 2-2. So I think this is more of a formality, but I do not think they're going to go with Joe Philbin for the long term.
Right.
Then the Packers have also requested interviews with Mike Munchak. He's the offensive coordinator again for the Steelers. Interesting if you're jumping on the Antonio Brown wants to be traded news, but Pittsburgh is never going to let Antonio Brown go because some dead cap that they would have to incur over $20 million worth in 2019. So, but if they have no Cobb next year and over $30 million in free cap room and 2 first-round picks, who knows? Maybe Antonio Brown comes to the Packers.
I don't think we need that diva on the Packers. I know there's a lot of people that are like, bring him in. Bring in the Steelers running back that never showed up this year. Bring them all over. I don't foresee that happening, but the press conference today from Mike Tomlin of the Steelers, he was upset.
Oh, I bet he was. Like,
yikes.
All my peeps just don't want to play. What the hell?
I could see steam coming out of his cap.
Hey, you know what? Some guys just want to be able to move on, and they sign these long-term contracts, and if they're producing, renegotiate your contract. And if they don't want to renegotiate, is what it is. It's again, it's business. And if you want to hold out and try to get some more money and you think that they're going to pay you, you're wrong, because the Steelers didn't do that for Le'Veon Bell. So,
nope.
They're also considering a New England linebackers coach as well, Brian Flores. I also personally think that Eric Bieniemy should be on the table for a conversation from Kansas City, but I have not seen or heard any rumblings there as far as his name being thrown around. And then I thought these were kind of interesting, Wayne. A guy that you're pretty familiar with. He kind of crushed your hopes and dreams back at the NFC divisional game in Arizona. One Bruce Arians, who did announce his retirement from coaching after 2017 and is now doing some analyst work, I believe, on CBS. But he is really someone that I think that they should kind of take a look at, because he was a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. He had a .619 record in the regular season. He's 1-2 in the postseason, losing to the Panthers twice. Arians did beat the Packers in that game that Wayne was at for one of the amazing Hail Marys in that Larry Fitzgerald overtime touchdown run. But I think Bruce Arians is an interesting conversation call. I mean, Gruden came back. Maybe Arians doesn't want to hang it up just yet for the right gig.
Interesting. And yes, that was quite a game. If only we could have tackled Larry Fitzgerald, and if only Eddie Lacy didn't look like he was running with a piano on his back, that game could have been so different. But I believe Bruce Arians is one that was asked about the Packers opening a couple of weeks ago and said, not interested. But then again, I'm sure dollars can change your interest level quite a bit.
And then, of course, you have the proverbial name that has to get thrown out there in one John Harbaugh, because obviously since he won the Super Bowl, he's just not gotten the love in Baltimore like he should. So just throw his name out there for the heck of it to see what happens.
How about Jim Harbaugh? The khaki
Could
one.
possibly. Never going to leave, though, but sure.
Any other guys interested?
Well, I mean, that's 13 names right there, and they said they wanted to interview 10 to 12, so
yeah,
there you go.
That's going to keep the team busy for a while.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, especially with a bunch of these guys being part of the playoff conversation.
That's true. Playoffs? Oh, wait, not for the Packers. Next year. Next year, Troy. Bring on the playoffs. But in the meantime, let's bring on the listener feedback. The Packers Fan Podcast, G-Force to be exact. You can give us a call even during the offseason. We want to hear your call and maybe even save it for an upcoming episode that we'll be coming out with, maybe an emergency episode once the coach is hired. But keep this phone number handy, 920-3PACK-GO. And also keep this website handy, PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback.
Hey guys, it's Andre LA. As always, go Pack Go. Today was a disappointing end to a disappointing season. I'm actually very thankful the season's over. I think if we went into the playoffs, it would have been a waste and it would have been very misleading. Very disappointed in what I saw just overall this season. The defense was very inconsistent. There were some highlights, Kenyon Clark out of UCLA, I really like him. Mike Daniels, he had an up and down year. Fikro, I believe is his name. Alexander, Martinez. I liked a lot of them. I like some of the young receiving core, but a lot too many drops. Hopefully we don't bring back Jimmy Graham. Hopefully we can get out of that contract. He was a huge disappointment this year. I'm hoping Aaron Rodgers comes back very healthy, shoulder, leg, knee. Mentally, it felt like he last week sort of found the joy again. I just think the team needs to overhaul a lot. From special teams, maybe it's time to let go of Crosby. Definitely time to let go of Cobb. Hopefully Geronimo Allison gets healthy and comes back better than ever next year. But we just need to take a hard look at what we're doing because it feels like we're wasting Aaron Rodgers, maybe the back end of his prime. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hope you guys are enjoying the holidays. We've got a lump of coal for Christmas, but the new year, looking forward to the new season. Go Pack Go, green and gold till I'm dead and gold. Andre in LA. Love the podcast.
Thanks, Andre. Good to hear from you. And I just love when people are like, wasting Aaron Rodgers' good years, blah, 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 blah. Because that one just craws at me a little bit because there was a formula, a statistic that was done that kind of compared like all of the quarterbacks in like the current era, like Brett Favre and Peyton Manning and a few others. And they basically said, like, look at them in their course of their years that they played their teams and how many of them got to the Super Bowl and then how many of them actually won the Super Bowl. And the only thing that you have to think about here is that in the case of Rodgers, he was in one Super Bowl and won it, right? And then he was literally knocking on the door in two other opportunities, obviously 2014 against the Seahawks, and then, of course, the Falcons in 2016 as well. So, when you think about, like, have we wasted his good years? No, we haven't wasted his good years. We've been in the playoffs, every single year except last year. So basically every year that he has been the starter, save for the first one and the last two, and one of those he was hurt for, we have not wasted the best years of Aaron Rodgers. We've been competitive. It is very hard to go to the big game on a regular basis. Now people are saying, well, the New England can do it, then why can't the Packers do it? And I think that's because of just the things that we don't do, which is, of course, free agency, and we've been suffering from lackluster drafts in the earlier part of the year. So if we've done anything, we've wasted the entire organization's time in the last couple of years, not just Aaron Rodgers. So I think Aaron's done what he's need to do. Now it's a matter of, can Aaron get back to being the miracle man that he's been in the first half of the decade as we approach into 2020? So that way he's able to go ahead and put a name for himself out there and get back to the Super Bowl once again. I don't think next year is going to be that year, but I definitely think 2020 is going to be a year that we'll be knocking on the door once again.
We'll be standing by and covering it all here on the Packers Fan Podcast. Andre, again, thank you for all of your calls all season long, all of your support, all of your feedback. And interesting point, I can't believe I forgot about this guy, only because of him being injured the past couple of weeks. Kenny Clark, he was definitely a highlight this past season. I totally agree, Andre.
For shizzle.
And expecting huge things from Kenny next season. And, of course, Alexander Martinez, they were good. And is it a case of, if we do want to move on from Jimmy Graham, is it a case, Troy, of getting out of the contract? Or, like you said, is there just an option we can say, nah?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the deal is. Where all I remember is that if we decide to keep him and he sticks around, then we have to pay a bonus or something or pick up an option on his deal, which is quite expensive. So I think for the production value this year and something as boneheaded as not knowing where the markers are, I think that's something that you can say, yeah, definitely we have to move on from that deal and see if we can go out and get a better tight end. Like Jared Cook.
Oh, I hear he's with a team that loves to give players away. Anything's possible. Well, this week's Monday Twitter poll, on Twitter, obviously, at Packers Fan Pod, and in our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group, which could be the last Monday poll for a while because there's nothing going on Sundays for a bit. Basically wanted to mention that the game did not go as planned. So Packers fans, what do you think the team should do ASAP? And the averages, when I combined Facebook and Twitter, because the results were so different on both, combined them and they come out pretty even. 35% of the people that voted said change our conditioning methods.
Yeah, I think the rash of injuries as of late and the preparation or diet or whatever it is, I don't know. It just seems like we get injured way more than we should, and especially at key positions. So either those people are super fragile and just shouldn't be playing football anymore just for their own health and safety, or we need to figure out a different regime on how to make sure we stay healthy throughout the entire season.
Yeah, if there's a way that changing the conditioning could keep a lot more Packer players healthy, I'm all for it. Another 28% voted that we need to replace all of our coaching staff ASAP, whereas 28%, a different 28%, by the way, said replace most of the coaching staff.
Well, I definitely think you need to get rid of the tight ends coach and the special teams coach. Those are two gaping holes this year, in my opinion.
And 9% of the people that voted said trade a lot of the players away because they just didn't seem to be trying or didn't know what they were doing.
I don't know if it's a trade necessarily. Just let them walk.
Same, only different. Yeah, because some we may not get much for them in trade, but there's going to be a lot of new faces. We got to learn new names yet again because I don't know about you, Troy, but in this last game at Lambeau Field, the shutout to the Lions, there were players on the field. Yeah, I was like, I got to look that up because my wife was like, who's? I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, who was the running back that was in there in the fourth quarter?
Don't know.
Didn't even recognize that guy.
Things are happening. We also got emails this week. We got an email from Caleb who said, hey, Packers Nation, Caleb Fisher, Roy Fisher, and Mary Herkmans from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and just wanted to say how disappointing this season has been. What a way to end a horrible season. And one thing that needs to be addressed is the conditioning coach, and our defense needs to do much better than they've been doing. So echoing the vote for better conditioning for sure. And like the great Coach Lombardi said, what the hell's going on out there? It seems like we have had Bart Starr as our coach this past season. Ouch. No matter what happens, we will never stop cheering for our Green Bay Packers. Bleed green and gold till dead and cold. And, of course, go Pack Go. Caleb Fisher, thank you very much for your emails, Caleb.
Yeah, and I think the big thing there is that this is a game that if any of those like longer passes Kaiser had to any of the receivers were just a millimeter closer or a centimeter closer. I mean, I think that was a great summary of this season. Was it's like almost, but not quite.
Next time.
Then we had our email from Stephen in Palos Park, Illinois for the final time for the regular season. And as Charles Dickens wrote, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. And this season was more of the worst side. I suspect that big changes will be made in the offseason that will start with hiring of a head new coach and, of course, a whole new coaching staff. I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers injured for a third season in a row. So the final grade that I give the Green Bay Packers this year is a big fat F. And that really shouldn't be a surprise based on how they had played for most of the season. That's it for me for now. And for the last time this season, go Pack Go.
Steven, thanks again for all your emails. And I don't know, I'm tempted to give an F, but I still love the team. They just keep letting me down, and we did have a few wins. We just never could win 2 in a row, which is imperative if you want to go to the playoffs. I, myself, a final grade D+.
Yeah, that's where I was landing, D+, because when you look at the defensive side of the ball, granted the running defense a little bit lackluster there towards the end of the season, but when you think about where we were in a secondary ranking the year before and then look at where we rank now in the secondary, I think there's definitely been some improvements. And I think when we were able to get the offense firing on all cylinders, it was pretty darn explosive once again. I mean, we hung in there with the Rams. We hung in there with the Patriots. We hung in there with the Seahawks. These are all playoff teams right now, and we were literally one possession away from winning those games. So this team is not an F team. This team played a lot of heart in their football. They just came up a little bit short. So, yeah, I think in most aspects of the season, just not being able to convert where you needed to convert on third down, that really downgrades the offense right there. And then, of course, the run defense and the special teams gets an F for sure.
Yes.
And I think maybe even bring in a kicker to kind of challenge Crosby, just because last time Crosby kind of had like an up and down season. That's what we did. And then Crosby was money thereafter. So doesn't hurt to take a look, right? So, yeah, I think C- D+. I think it's the same thing. It's kind of like music notes. F sharp, G flat, same thing. But at the same time, yeah, it wasn't a great season, but at least I was entertained. That's one thing I've always said. It's like, if we have to lose, at least don't waste my 3 hours.
I have heard you say that on quite a few occasions.
Which obviously Sunday was a waste. I only watched the 30-minute condensed version of that one.
And that was probably too much.
No,
unfortunately.
it was really good seeing Kaiser out there. I think Kaiser had some really good looks, and just again, it's just timing with the receivers and getting the practice and getting the reps and all of that stuff. And all the things that I saw from Kaiser were coachable, easily coachable. But it's not like he had poor fundamentals. It wasn't like the ball was off the mark by a lot. So I think that there's a lot of promise there.
And when you mentioned how we almost beat the Patriots, we almost beat the Rams and other playoff caliber teams, it just always strikes me as odd that sometimes it just seems like we play up to our competition.
Oh, for sure. And then we play down, like losing to the Lions, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Washington Redskins. You get those 3 games back, and you're in the playoff conversation.
Oy. Anyway, be sure to join the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group at packerscommunity.com. There's conversations going on right now, like posts and comments about all the different coaching possibilities, interim head coach Philbin's press conference videos, a few very bittersweet photos of Packers players clearing out their lockers after the loss to the Lions, and some other great stuff from you in the Packers community at packerscommunity.com.
One last time with feeling for your 2018 100th season of Green Bay Packers football. We just want to say thanks. Thanks for all the people that have ever played for the Green Bay Packers, like good old number 24, Willie Wood. He did amazing things for the team, and Bryant has done amazing things for the Packers Fan Podcast with his 24 monthly dollar contribution in support of the podcast. Thank you so much, Bryant, for being a loyal supporter, and hope that continues throughout the offseason.
And the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics Facebook group supporting your Packers Fan Podcast at the $12 a month pledge level really epitomize the leadership style that Aaron Rodgers brings to the green and gold. Thank you, all of you, for your support, and stay tuned for their Go Pack Go and message at the end of this episode.
Supporting us at the $4 Brett Favre monthly level, who is not going to be the future coach of the Green Bay Packers, but he's still supporting in his own way, just like MVP Scott Clark from the Gaming Outsider podcast, Andre in LA, as well as our lifelong Packer backer Randy Westgame dedication up there in Wausau, and good old Jeff Summerfield still pumping it out at the $4 Brett Favre level. Thanks so much, guys, for all your support this season.
And the Packers would not be coming up on their 101st season if they did not have a first season, thanks to Curly Lambeau. And supporting at the Curly Lambeau $1 a month support level, Velvet Eau Claire, Aaron Peterson from the Hollywood Outsider, and Hank Davis from the TPE network of podcasts.
Yes, you too can help make the Packers Fan Podcast even better. Just because we'll be in the off-season mode, we'll still have some special episodes for the draft and head coaching news and things of that nature. So keep your donations coming on in. It's how we kind of build up the kitty for next season. So make sure that if you got any value out of the show this season, especially, this is a value for value method of support. So make sure that you go ahead and continue your donations if you're a donator. If you haven't become a donator, just be that next single person that's going to go ahead and throw some money in the bucket for all of us for the coming season. So just want to say a big thanks again. We have all different levels out there, all different kinds of rewards values as well, including going to a game at Lambeau Field with me. So you got to start that by January. If you're committed to the $92 a month Reggie White level for 6 months from January through July, then we'll make sure that you are the ticket holder that will be coming to the game with me next season. And we know who the opponents are, so now's the time to go ahead and jump in at that $92 level. So big thanks again to Aaron, Hank, the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics, Andre, Scotty, Bryant, Randy, Jeff, and Velvet for all their support this season and being just super awesome MVP fans of the Packers Fan Podcast.
You all are fantastic. Thank you so very much. And during the off season is when some of the other costs associated to the hosting of the website for the Packers Fan Podcast and other things like that come up in April, May, and June and things like that. But during the off season, like you said, Troy, we'll have, episodes around the draft and things like that. And of course, an emergency episode once we do hire our new head coach, and at least a couple of days before the episode, if time does permit, we'll definitely post out on Twitter and Facebook to remind y'all that if you do want to get in your feedback and be part of that show, we always want your listener feedback. And if any way possible, we want to make sure that we give you time to get that in before the recording.
because this is your unofficial Packers fan podcast. That's right. Fan is in the title for a reason. It's all about you guys. So make sure that you get in your feedback by calling 920-3PACK-GO. Again, that's 920-3PACK-GO, or get it into packerscommunity.com, at PackersFanPod on Twitter, and all the other places that you can find us, mostly listed on the website at PackersFanPodcast.com. And with that, we will say adieu for the 2018 season, as the unofficial Packers Fan Podcast is not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. However, if you would like us to be on one of your shows next season, that's right. We did a couple in the UK. We did a couple for the Finn side in Miami. So if you have a podcast out there that has one of our opposing team members, just give us enough heads up notice. We'd love to do that. Email us at media@PackersFanPodcast.com.
Yeah, we look forward to doing a lot more of that next season for sure. And during the off season, there's still going to be Packers things happening. So follow us on Twitter at PackersFanPod and join the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community, because things are going to be happening, and that is where you will hear it first from us.
And don't forget, the 100th NFL season doesn't technically end until the league transition date there in March. So this is still a great time to head on up to Lambeau Field, check out the Hall of Fame, do some of the tours around the stadium, go to Titletown and go on the sled hill and the ice skating rink. Lots to do up at Lambeau Field, even in non-season timeframes. So make sure you go ahead and plan a trip to Lambeau at some point. It is definitely a fun time. And you want to make sure to follow us in all the places you can find us. I am at Troy Heinritz over on Twitter. You could join the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community, as we mentioned, packerscommunity.com. And, of course, the Blacklist is coming back in just 2 days from now. So by the time you hear this, it's probably already airing. So make sure you follow me over to the Blacklist Exposed podcast. That's theblacklistexposed.com.
And the next thing you know, we'll be back with another episode of the Packers Fan Podcast. But in the meantime, thank you for all of your support this season and listening to this particular episode of your Packers Fan Podcast.
Be sure to stay subscribed in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Download the apps for iOS and Android. However, those might be going away come the time we go to renew those in June. So if you want to see the app stick around, help us hit our goal. Again, PackersFanPodcast.com/support. Make sure you hit our monthly goal there. Donate a couple bucks if you want to keep the apps going. If not, those will probably be retired in the off season this year, since we have all these other great places to get podcasts. Again, Apple, Google, Spotify, Spreaker, and of course on the website, PackersFanPodcast.com. Thanks so much for a great 2018, Wayne. It's been a pleasure once again, as always, being your right-hand man on this side of the mic.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks, Troy, for being part of the Packers Fan Podcast. People love the banter and think sometimes that, who was it? Somebody this past season said they remind us of their drunk uncle.
You'd be drunk too if you ate one of those street cart vendor sausages in LA.
Or one of those bacon wrapped pretzel things at Lambeau Field.
Oh yeah. That was so good.
Yes. The pictures did not do them justice.
Don't worry. Our food 2019 episode will be out before you know it.
We're already hungry.
Oh my gosh. With that, I guess the only way to leave this 100th season of Green Bay Packers football is with our good friends down there in Texas. Go ahead, Granny Cheese. Take it away.
This is Dawn down here in Texas, a.k.a. Granny Cheese.
Hi, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Kim.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Hi, I'm Lisa Montgomery, proud mom of number 88, Ty Montgomery, and we want to say,
Go Pack, go!